سبحان فالق الإصباح.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Light the Fuse right here on hackerhamin.podbean.com. I'm your host, the most lives on the West Coast, your boy, Matthew Schaffer. I am hanging out down the street. It is a good old time. It's not the same old thing we did last week because we're not getting into trouble like some other felonious individuals out there, but we are smoking, lighting, and ready to serve up some hot takes for you. Mr. Ben Hamin, yo Allah. Good day, sir.
B-I-G-G-I-E, also known as the Bon Appetit. Rappers keep creeping, big keep cheating. That's right. Ben Hamin back in it. Benny Smalls is the illest, and we're about to light the fuse. I saw some butt ends of the show, so I'll get in my 1-2 punch, but I got to pass the mic to the guy I know who can come in and do the body of the work when I got to get the hot tag, and that's my man Chris Silvio, ready to rock and roll today, macho style, baby.
Body of the work happens to also be the body of Light the Fuse. And today, frankly, I think the good looks. Cut the grass yesterday, boys. I'm feeling good.
Oh, yeah, man. You look great as always switching up style. He knows the more different looks he has, that's the more action figures they have to make of him, and that's always money in the bank. He knows he's always keeping it psychedelic, sexy, and shaven now as well. So.
Oh, hey.
I keep that printer of yours busy, that 3D printer, with the new line of Silvio action figures, and one comes shirtless. So all you out there listening that like that kind of thing.
And we can even do a 1-to-1 design. So if you have your own 3D printer, you can print out pieces of Silvio, reform him, and have a life-size one that you can put in your car, or your bed, or whatever you want to do with it. You know what I mean? Whatever floats your boat. You have your own psychedelic superstar right there in your house, 3D.
Sounds great. I love the sound of that. Hey, by the way, I cut my lawn yesterday. So for the last couple months, I've been buying like this treatment to make it look pretty and green. And I've officially become like dad status almost, even though I don't have kids. Nice. I fucking hated grass, hated cutting it as a kid. Now I'm one of those fucking dudes that wants to have the prettiest lawn on the block. So I can spend like 6 hours caring for my lawn last night. So.
Nice. How's
life changes, boys.
You're happy with it, though? You like it?
Yeah, it looks great. I'll send you some photos.
Awesome. Yeah, man, everybody's got their thing as you get older and what you're into and what you feel is important changes. That's good, though. I'm sure you're as meticulous as you are with everything else. It's probably out there with the goddamn toenail trimmers, blade by blade. Pretty soon, he'll be right down there on all fours. Ruler out, making sure everything's 4 1/4 inches, all spec and nothing out of turn. Don't even try and be a weed. You'll be out of there. You're out of there, kid. But yeah, man, let's rip through it, you guys. Light the fuse. We're not streaming live at twitch.tv/conspiracy horseman today, but that's just because of some technical stuff and scheduling shit. But you're listening to it now at hackerhamin.podbean.com. And I'll also try and get a YouTube video out if we can figure the way to do the upload Dropbox download.
I'll take care of it.
I just have to give Schaffer some extra permissions, which we'll see if he's earned. Now that he's the graduate, this guy's walking around putting his degrees in everybody's face. He's slamming degrees in everybody's face, still saying, I got it now. Look at me. And we'll see if he's got it. We'll see how much of his lessons he's learned.
I mean, I don't know if I hold myself in that much regard, but I appreciate that maybe others think I do, I guess.
He's slamming those degrees into his face.
They're not even on the walls yet. I haven't even got frames for them. They're coming, though. Those frames are coming. They're going to be decorated everywhere. But yeah, so let's get this rocking and rolling. As my phone as well is going off the hook. We got, as you mentioned.
Hold on. Go ahead. I got a call from Russo.
See that? He's got to go. Ben Hamin's important, guys.
Hey, I heard Hamin's been contacted by Impact for creative.
Yeah, dude. I know, right? It's some crazy shit. Like, all of a sudden, him and Manbeast are like going to some secret super island. What's going on that island? We can't confirm nothing nefarious.
And,
However, there might be some wrestling involved. I'm just saying, it might be Wrestlers Island.
it's unfortunate too, MSG, that they can't watch this on Twitch, because they could see Hamin actively kayfabing us, turning around to take a secret phone call in his library, is what it looks like, or
It
his
does
study.
look like a library, right?
What the fuck did he get a study?
It does look like something like somebody who was from the 1960s, 70s grew up in. They built that. I mean, it's classy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but there's a study. It's a recliner. You got a nice bookshelf there. It looks like it has a nice assortment of DVDs, maybe some records, some vinyl records there. Those big, some books. I don't know.
Looks like it. You got any dirt for me today, Maddie? What's the Stooge report?
Some stooge, some dirt. Well, I mean, been mentioned. I mean, since he's not going to be here full show, we can kind of talk about whatever we want, but still keep it under tight time limit. Yeah. He didn't go through any of the headlines, like as far as what happened on any of the pro wrestling scene the last couple of days itself. I know that I had sent one over about the court documents from a lawsuit confirming the rumors about WWE Crown Jewel, which I thought would be a good topic to bring up. As well as there was a Chris Stratlander. And then, but the biggest one I think we should start off with is that apparently Joey Janela carries around a bag full of White Claws. So according to Joey Janela, the bad boy Joey Janela says he's responsible for turning Tony Khan into a White Claw fanatic. In a new interview, he revealed that the AEW president knows how to party. Speaking of the latest episode of the Doughboys podcast, he said, I got Tony Khan a White Claw. He got really into it. So now he carries around a duffel bag full of White Claws. If we go to a restaurant, they don't have White Claw, there's a duffel bag of White Claws underneath the table, and that's what everybody's drinking. Apparently he says, though, it's not just Tony. He says the White Claw obsession has taken over the entire AEW locker room. Chris Silvio, everyone's apparently getting crunk on White Claw.
So it's Tony that's carrying around the claw, not Joey Janela.
It's Tony. He's packing the claws.
I'd like to bring a little Coors Light into the mix there.
Coors Light.
At least, they're light. They like to party. They pop their collars down, not up. That's a good thing. He's a billionaire running around sipping a White Claw. He's a man of the people.
I mean, is it responsible, though, for your boss to be doing that?
Fuck it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've worked in corporate environments where we've had in a progressive style way, where on Fridays they brought in a keg, and you couldn't, if you want to drink 1 to 2 drinks, but you couldn't go home then. You had to stay there between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. It was after the office. But it was they have a whole room for it with, ping pong tables and foosballs. It was a way for your employees to interact. They were going to go to the bar anyway. Well, why not get a drink here? Sure. So they did that, but that's really the only time I've ever seen beer at work. I've never seen my boss, just carrying around a duffel bag full of beer. Now, I do know bosses that have walked off and been and they've caught us, same company. We were out in the parking lot one day just smoking, and we walked by and he was like, your numbers were good. I don't care what you're doing. And he just kept on going. I was like, oh, so there's ways to take advantage of that, but we weren't actively looking to get crunk,
When I was a kid, during the summers, I would work construction for one of the kids on my wrestling team. His dad owned construction, and every Friday was Free Beer Friday. So what they would do is the construction workers would bring a couple coolers filled with beer. And, the culture on a construction site, a bunch of men smoking cigarettes and talking about boobies. So we're 16, 17, 15 drinking beer on a Friday. So I dig it. But talking about Tony, you got to think about this, man. When Vince started his push in the 80s, Vince, I believe, was in his late 30s to early 40s, and Vince used to throw down with the boys. When you listen to some of these old stories about Vince at the strip club, Vince drinking, Vince maybe blowing some of the money that he was earning, he was going in hard. So Tony Khan's a little younger. You got to think, man, it's just where you're at as a man at that current stage. So he's probably doing what he would do if he was out with his boys. But I will say, I'm sure he's not drinking on the job. When the work's done, I'm sure he's down to party, and I'm cool with that. I like a good party. A good party, Maddie? I
do like a good party. However, personally, I don't find myself in a lot of situations where I'm surrounded by a lot of drunk people. I find that a lot of people who get obnoxiously drunk make stupid decisions, say stupid things. I like going there and chilling, because I'll be the guy that's just chiefing, and watching shit and laughing, but I'm not gonna be actively dumb. I always say I'm that guy in the corner that brings a guitar and I'm maybe sitting there jamming something. like to do maybe improv, observational humor, what I see, what's going on in my surroundings. It's a good way to make icebreaker when you're in places you don't know. So I like those kind of parties for sure, but I don't like, well, let's get that. Like those aren't my style of parties.
You don't like to get white girl wasted.
I don't like girl waste parties. Those are too much for me.
Hey, you want to talk about the turd in the punch bowl at the party? How about the news coming out this week that somebody at NXT tested positive for COVID-19? And there's evidently, it's been said by a lot of sources, I'm not going to quote it as fact, but evidently there was a mandate or request made by Kevin Gunn saying that since they are now allowing some friends and family to come to the tapings, that if you wear a you wear a mask, you're not a true fan. So they are not allowing fans to wear masks at the taping. Wow. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, we talked briefly about it yesterday on Impact Attack. And of course, Ben and Ted had varying views on the medical, advice and differences as far as the mask requirements. I definitely was going to bring it up to you, of course. My personal opinion, I think you should be allowed to wear the mask if you want to.
Sure.
If you don't want to wear the mask and you're going to be going into that setting, then I think the responsibility lies within both parties, either WWE offering and mandating some form of COVID testing as you enter the arena. And there has to be some sort of compliance on your end as the consumer. Then if you are not participating in wearing the mask, then you must take this test. And then if something happens at that point, WWE, I think, isn't liable. Like I have to give them some sort of like leeway as a company. If they take every precautionary steps, then it's not necessarily their fault. However, if they're mandating they don't wear masks and then people are getting sick, then yes, now the responsibility lies in WWE's hands because they said I couldn't wear it. And then you also didn't, really, I didn't have to sign a waiver or anything. I mean, now they're saying they're having fans sign waivers. So would you give up your rights to go watch a wrestling show? Is, I guess, in a liability? Is wrestling now going to be a form of, death entertainment? Like, how when you go into a baseball game, they tell you over the PA speaker, in the event that a baseball hits you in the face or blah, 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 the team is not liable. They actually say it to you. So is that what it's going to have to come to? Just like a quick little speech?
It shouldn't be, man. Like if you're talking about, a lot of people right now want to talk about freedoms, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, all this freedom shit. I think it should be my choice. If I want to wear a mask somewhere, regardless of where it is, if I want to wear a mask to somebody's wedding because I feel unsafe, I think it should be the right. But I think this all kind of falls down to that old, Vince McMahon, there is no sick. I don't know if he just doesn't believe the disease or he just doesn't want to show any sort of weakness whatsoever, which Vince is known to do. Just such an interesting mind. Like I would love for just a day to just be able to sit down with Vince and quiz him all day long, just ask him any question I want and see what the fuck goes on in his head. I got so much respect for him being the world's greatest promoter. He's done some cool stuff, but he just sounds like a quirky, fascinating dude. I don't get it. They got some balls saying that is the best that I can say, but I hope nobody else gets sick and, they're actually doing testing there now. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, to that point, you'd have to, one would think that there has to be some form of political connection on that end for Mr. McMahon. I mean, he does have ties to the president. The wife works for his administration. So if he shows any sign of weakness in his product, them acknowledging it as some sort of threat, then perhaps that potentially makes Linda look bad, which could get back to her at work, right? So that creates some sort of tension within the workspace. And as we've heard, and I think there's an interview coming out this week on ABC because we've been promoting all week is John Bolton, the man in the room, his former senior advisor is now putting out a book and doing a full interview and they're trying to stop it. So there's been a lot of tension in that room and you don't want to end up on ABC. I'm guessing at this point they just kind of want to promote wrestling.
Hey, let's talk a little bit of COVID before you get into your last topic here. So I'm sure you've seen that the cases in Florida are rising quite a bit. And if anybody that's been watching WWE has noticed they've made no mention. What's the term that they used to use this during unforeseen times or something like that?
Yes. And
something like that. They haven't said COVID. We haven't seen masks on TV. Whereas on the other brand, AEW on the very first one, the very first empty arena with Cody and Omega in the dark ring, they made mention to the situation, but I don't think they ever used the word COVID. But we would see people in masks in subsequent weeks, and they would do some jokes every now and again, as part of the show, referencing it. There was an interesting point last night when they were doing the deal where Britt Baker was passing notes to Tony Schiavone, where evidently these were live notes that Britt was writing there to try to pop Tony. And one of them, it looked like Tony was about to say she's self-isolating due to COVID or something like that. And you see Tony do an about face and decide against saying COVID. So I think that's telling me there's likely a directive coming from up top to not mention anything like that on the show due to the fact that A, Florida is going to start allowing sporting events, and B, the cases are on the rise. So I think it would be some liability for them and something they wouldn't want to mention. That seems more of a WWE move than AEW, but there's parallels. What do you think?
I think you test more, you're going to find more on the rise. And then they don't say that testing is up 3,000%. That's why cases are up that much. And they also keep labeling that. And it's the common cold in summertime in the sunshine with vitamin D for more scare tactics all the way around. The veil has dropped on all of this. Whatever it is that they tried to juice the system, crush America, whatever it is, they were successful in it, but they're not going to keep holding people down with a 98% cure rate, and 2% of the people who die are because of pre-existing conditions who are older. The society will not bend that way, no matter what they're trying to do. So everyone is just kayfabing and being a dirtbag, believing that going into a store wearing a mask is going to fucking protect you as much as a piece of hockey glass on WWE. Meanwhile, Dominic runs in the ring and then runs through the crowd, spreading whatever plague he may have upon him. Like, it's just so bullshit. Social distancing, and the announcers are sitting right next to each other. I mean,
the
come on.
point I'm making here, though, Ben, is that you saw Schiavone use an about face instead of saying the term or something about it. And
so
that's
now
something that AEW hadn't necessarily been doing. So that struck me as odd that he clearly – so that seems to me there's some kind of mandate saying, hey, don't use this word because cases are on the rise, all this other stuff.
Right, because they don't want to get pointed out and have people looking at them because they know that their audience are virtual signaling crybaby SJWs to about 75% of them, and they are turning on each other. They turned on Ryan Barkin at Pro Wrestling Tees for not virtue signaling. And now they know enough as workers to protect them. They're gonna go from embracing that mentality to being like, dude, they're marks. We got to protect our own shit, which I can't blame them for. But if your foundation is built on that, then it's going to be a rocky road in the head,
Definitely.
Well, the last topic I was going to bring up here was the WWE court documents have been leaked. And there are rumors about speculations. A couple of different professional wrestlers may be a witness in this suit against World Wrestling Entertainment in regards to they potentially participating in a hostage situation in regards to not letting their employees.
You don't participate in a hostage situation. That's
allegedly. Allegedly.
Well, no, that's not the definition of a hostage situation. You're a participant against your will.
Right.
That's what makes you a hostage.
However, there are court documents that have surfaced that one of the witnesses have come forward and made notion that there were guards on the plane with guns. They were intimidating the wrestlers, they stated, and they were apparently in fear of their life. Now, that's not, of course, the full WWE jargon. If you want to read the whole jargon, you can check out CW2, which means confidential witness to, in PDF format at.
I'm getting that embroidered on my new BDUs.
But basically, the pilot sounded distressed when he informed the passengers that the flight was unable to take off. He recalled that then they were told it was because of mechanical issues. He recalled seeing a ton of guards wearing black militia attire and wearing guns that were blocking their exit and staring at all the wrestlers. They became aware that something was wrong and explained that a number of the other personnel were referring to the event as a hostage situation. He explained that he asked Mark Carrano what was going down, which sounds interesting if you think about other instances where particular wrestlers have gone to Carrano here in the last couple of months. They've told stories about that. and that the Prince Mohammed bin Salman and McMahon had gotten into an argument over late payments, and that it made the Prince very mad. You guys all know that story if you want to look it up further. But
I will say one thing. I'm not whatever you want to say about Vince McMahon, but I know Bin Salman, and he's a cheap cocksucker. He's shorted me ever since we were little kids. He always would want the most candy, and then he'd act like he didn't have any. He's always a prick like that. So I'd love to put him over, but my cousin or whatever, twice removed, he is a prick. I cannot stand that motherfucker. But he's number 2. He's on top, so everybody's got to do what he says. But apparently Vince McMahon didn't. We were laughing when Vince fucking got hot at him.
Now, I mean, out of respect, before you go with Silvio, I was just going to say, out of respect for the pro wrestlers, I'm not going to speculate on air publicly who we think it is, because that's not fair to those guys to put their shit out there. But if you do your research, guys, our Hami Media listeners, you can cross-reference and kind of get an idea who maybe this witness may be. Just read between the lines. Anyway, go
I
ahead,
know who
Silvio.
it was.
Oh.
So actually, it turns out that it was Russo
Oh,
who happened
swerve.
to be consulting with the Prince on creative.
Swerve.
So, yeah, it was Russo involved. But hey, didn't they say something about in this report? Wasn't there something about the pilot telling them they won't let us leave or something like that?
Well, it was initially from the context, as far as when the witness says, he says that the pilot said it was a mechanical issue and they weren't able to take off. However, in the format, I guess, of delivering that news, he sounded very distressed, very panicked. It didn't sound very confident. It wasn't like, hey, guys, unfortunately, due to mechanic, it was, we can't take it. It was probably more somebody's holding a gun to your head or telling you got to say these words. And but eventually, as we are all aware, Vince McMahon and a select group of wrestlers and personnel authority, about 20 to 25 people is what we were told, got on a plane and were able to charter a plane to Buffalo. And that individual was on that plane as well. So more clues, guys.
Gotcha. Hey, I mean, I don't want to dig 20 minutes into this, but I got something that I want to get your opinion on.
Sure.
So I saw your clip the other day of, I think it was the locker room with you, Beast, and Matty Bimblatti. And you were talking about the Total Bellas thing, and the heading read something like the Bellas beat AEW and NXT. And, sometimes like when you go in hard on something, I'll try to tell you, you're a little bit off, you're going a little too hard. I have differing opinion. So when I first started listening to it, I was like, man, I mean, it's going to be a dick. He needs to go easy on these guys. And then when I thought about it, the magnitude of that is holy shit. 2 wrestling shows did get beat by the Total Bellas reality show. What in the flying fuck is going on? Like, not to shit on any of the promotions. They're both my 2 favorite wrestling shows in the world right now. But how the fuck does this happen?
I'm not here to shit on the Bellas or reality TV, because that's just not my cup of tea. And they are where they should be. They've built their brand. That's 2 twins spinning off a show. Their spin-off career is more than the industry they came from right now, dude. And it's not like they're way up high. They're right where they should be, under 1 million. That's fine. That's a great following to have and great numbers to post. Keep acting like you're over because you're the son of the 4 horsemen, Dusty, all this other shit. And the reality is your numbers have gone down by 50%. They started at 1.4 million, so under 50% at 670,000. But they keep attaboying themselves, and it keeps dropping and dropping. Plus, you combine that with NXT, they were both at over 2 million combined, and now they've lost 33% of their audience. I can sound like a prick all day long, but somebody's got to step fast and answer. And guess what? Big Daddy Khan ain't going to keep shelling out the money when he's losing 33%. Like, that's just a bad business investment at the end of the day, where that's going to breed what? Everybody's just a leech at the end of the day of WCW, trying to get their guaranteed money, contracts in, all the buddy system that started AEW, from going and plucking Joey Janela's guys, or, the freak show indie guys that would be on the WrestleMania stuff that got over from Marco to, all that kind of shit. Those guys are going to go by the wayside because we need big talent. Boom, 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 boom. And then that's not going to work either, because they don't have the creative or the character or the industry built, because now they're going to feed the audience. They built something that they did promise them in the beginning wasn't going to happen, and watch them turn on it. everyone's set up for failure, and they're going down a road where they know there's no win at the end, but they keep pursuing because they won't listen to anyone on the outside of their bubble, their wrestling bubble, man. And it's sad, but it's absolutely true. And I can be blackballed, and for whatever you want to reason. Oh, we can't use him because he's playing a Muslim extremist. Oh, he's OVW, and we can't sign anybody from that because that'll show that NXT was a rip or that, or the fact that he's a Russo guy or what. Like, it's not about me politicking to get a job. It's about the fact of, like, here is the way forward with creative that will draw if you do business. You cannot have the Butcher and the Blade go 0-16 and then take his wife away from him to do a side chick storyline with QT Marshall and then make them dress all in white. And now this week they're wearing some sailor cap and you don't explain any of it. And you have Awesome Kong with your wife with a knife, and then she's doing something with Moxley in the kitchen where they're taking shots. And dude, it's overload. Then you sell for Jesus and Scooby-Doo. You give Spears a stunner. Like, this is why. This is why you're at where you're at. This is why you get hot takes cut on you. And I might seem like a dick, but it's all about the truth. I'd love to be going, holy fuck, dude, they're pulling a 2.6. They've relit a fucking fire under wrestling. It's awesome. But you had the best friends in your main event.
You know, you're just bringing up old shit, talking about Awesome Kong cutting people's hair and all this shit.
Old shit was 6 months ago. This company's only been around since October. They're not even here for a year. And they've had 3 TNA Dixie level restarts already.
In my humble opinion, across the board, I think the main reason, I'd say 90% of the reason for the drop in ratings across the board is that fans cannot digest the empty arena stuff. There are creative things that can be fixed. I will certainly give you that. But I think that's the main issue, is that fans don't like watching without anyone there.
How
even with
no
that,
competition? How with no competition from NCAA March Madness, no NBA, no Major League Baseball, no XFL, do you still lose people, bro? Your audience is captive under house arrest at home, under house arrest. And you still are fucking losing. There's no excuse. There is none.
There's not an excuse, but I just know, but speaking of wrestling fans, that's the reason a lot of them told me why they tuned out. But even with that, I still can't see how the 18 to 49 male demo would have rather watched Total Bella. Like, it boggles my mind.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily 18 to 49, right? It's probably more women that they've probably developed in this market as well.
I'm pretty sure they won in that demo as well, man.
Really?
They won the overall rating, and I'm pretty sure they won the 18 to 49.
Do you remember when we had you, when Al was with you, but we had, it was a show where you guys had the 6-man or something, and he was a surprise. And we had Idol on, and we only billboarded Idol. And Danny fucking chewed us the fuck out because we thought it was my ECW thing. Of like, oh, the surprise is here, right? Whatever. And we could have sold out. We sold a damn good house, but we thought we were over it. Danny's like, fuck you, dude. You just left a major ticket draw off the poster when we could have. And I'm like, I wanted to be surprised and creative. He goes, I wanted to sell 50 more fucking tickets. I was like, nothing I can say there. So then you're going to have Tony Hawk, which I love that segment last week, just do a walk-on in a scene as an aha moment when he's got the whole Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the whole skateboard thing. What if they billboarded it, Tony Hawk online, the whole week before he's going to be on fucking AEW. Now you're bringing in possibly 100,000 extra people who are skateboard fans, X game fans, just fans of the game to possibly do that. They're not doing any of the right shit. It's all mark out for your buddy stuff that doesn't pay off, or matches that you can circle who's going to win before the bell even rings, dude.
Well, we did get a magician this week. So, Maddie, let's do it. Let's light that fuse.
Let's light this fuse. Also, I just want to clarify the clip you were referring to, Ben talking about, was from the Monday Locker Room, and hashtag RBV was there too. I just want to shout him out.
Sorry, RBV.
It's okay.
Like Rick. He's my boy.
All right, so light the fuse. Let's do it, guys. Last week, AEW numbers, unfortunately, were down again. 667,000. In consideration, May 27th show their episode at 827,000, and then last week 730,000. So unfortunately, they continue to drop. I guess the only really key competition you might say is just all this mainstream coverage right now of the Floyd protests, COVID-19 pandemic. I tried to look up some stuff on Showbuzz, but everybody's kind of in summer sweeps right now. So there's not a lot of brand new content on. It's more like rehashing stuff. I know like my network is doing like a best of The Bachelor where they're showing all the seasons in one night. So like that's a lot what I've seen a lot of shows do, best of shows, which makes sense. Lack of production right now and people working, you're not able to create new content from Hollywood. But AEW, as far as those numbers are concerned, their YouTube viewership was down as well. They only had 2.04 views. Sorry, 2.04 views, down from last week's 3.5. The most viewed is Brian Cage Too Much for John Moxley, that interaction they had where they got into a fight. That was 590,000 views. The least viewed was Tony Hawk giving Darby Allin the green light, which is very weird. You would think that AEW might have promoted that better. They would have worked with Activision on promoting something of that, putting that on their website. 60,000 views. So I think that's definitely dropping the ball there on the cross promotion. The median viewership, though, 200,000 views. So getting into AEW tonight, we started off with the Tag Team Championship match, which I thought was interesting. Coming off Impact Wrestling opening up with their Tag Team Championship match, I wonder if somebody was watching that show and was like, yo, we got to put our title at the start of the night. And that's what they did. We had Kenny Omega and Hangman Page defending their tag team champions against the Nightmare Family, Nightmare Collective, Dustin Rhodes, and QT Marshall. So these two, I mean, this was a good tag team match. But, unfortunately, due to where Kenny Omega and I wouldn't say unfortunately as far as their positioning, but as far as the viewership, we just knew that Kenny Omega and Hangman Page were going to get the victory in this match, and that's what they did. So, Silvio, why don't you go ahead and break down the match on your thoughts?
Hell of a tag match, man, and Dustin was the MVP. I was watching this with Jenna, and she was just marveling at how fucking good Dustin is, and how he kept doing new shit. We saw him bust out a Rana off the second ropes with his fucking tall ass. Omega did a pretty good job basing for it. Looked good. We saw him do the Destroyer he's been busting out lately. He did a fucking corkscrew moonsault off the top onto two guys. And in addition to the fireworks he put in, he used old school great fucking psychology. Like, outside of the part of the match where Omega and Page were in for like a minute solid and didn't get thrown out, as a former tag team specialist, that kind of thing does wear on me a little bit. But outside of that, I thought it was damn good. And I got to give him props, man, because he's not necessarily treated as like a serious wrestler there, and he plays a lighthearted character. But I thought QT did a hell of a job. His shit was tight. His drop kick is his moneymaker. We've known that for years. But he busted out a few other really cool, sharp-looking things. He looked like a pro. I thought the match was very good, and Dustin was such the MVP that he outshined my boy Hangman in that one, and Omega.
And your thoughts?
I agree with everything Sil said there. I get worried when just because it's that, like, why is Dustin doing corkscrew moonsaults? Like, oh boy, like I just get scared. Because there's three other guys in that match who can do those moves that he doesn't have to, even though it turns out to be the oh my god memorable moment. But that's the risk versus reward. And I do like his footwork where he just stands in the middle of the ring and moves around just slightly is what really makes it to me to watch him. Like, I'm like, he didn't have to move at all to get like 6 different fucking parts of the match over. I love that shit, dude. Probably one of my favorite character workers of all time. And even his promo last week made it important. My ass is chapped because nothing, I mean, it wasn't as bad here, but it is because of the alley thing. I'm just not with it. But I got robbed of my favorite match of the week this past week was Bobby Lashley working all that heel heat on Drew McIntyre at Best in the World or Backlash or whatever. It was an awesome match, probably one of the best matches I've seen Lashley work. Then we march out Lana at the end of walk right up, stand on the apron. The whoa spot is coming, finish, right? I'm just so tired of them ruining great matches where I want to finish with a side piece or a best friend or a scorned lover storyline that comes in to set up. It's They say, I remember Cody saying, you're not going to get the old manager jump up spot here. Well, instead of doing it on the apron, you're doing it on the ramp now is all you're doing, So I'm just tired of it ruining matches where guys are working their ass off and they think that's doing business to further one little piece of the storyline that's going to end up in a cat fight between Allie and Brandy, right? They just
could have
worked
done without that and maybe had Allie come in post-match. What was awesome about this, and this is how I teach wrestling, in 2020, fans have expectations. So you have to have fireworks. Like, this is my opinion, the way I teach. You got to give them some cool shit because that's what they expect. But the whole match doesn't have to be cool shit. It can make sense, and it can be done sparingly to where it means more and the match is still great. Dustin showed that last night. That's how every motherfucker today in pro wrestling should be working, not emulating his style per se, but instead of doing 36 high spots in a match, condense it. Give me 4 or 5, have the rest of the match have some stakes and drama, and fucking wrestling's great again, and not as many people are getting hurt.
What are 2 fireworks moves I can do to add in when we come back? So
we'll talk. Sign up for my classes. I'll give you some shit.
No, you give me the old sign up guy. You even get a Stevie 5 discount code or no? What the fuck?
I'll give you 25%.
All right.
You guys talk about Allie and QT Marshall. I don't know if you saw, Ben, Sylvia, I'm sure if you got to still show as well, if you saw the text that was scrolling across the bottom where they were giving AEW Dark results. Did you catch that?
I did not, but that's a good touch.
Well, the weird thing about this is you mentioned Allie. Apparently Allie and Brandy are tagging. They tagged on Dark, and they won in their tag match, apparently.
That's not a bad thing because they'll do the mismatch I hate you where we're stuck together, or else they'll forget about that altogether and then they'll become best friends and we'll forget about that, and then she's my best friend and you're a best friend and we're all best friends, just like Alexa Bliss and all. Like, that's on the other thing on my band list. Coward, female finish, and who your best friend is. I don't give a fuck about any of those things in a storyline. I'm so tired of it. It's so beat to death.
Well, moving on after that, we got probably one of AEW's, my opinion, one of their best debuts from any professional entertainer or wrestler on their show with this female wrestler named Abaddon. Abaddon.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this was freaking awesome. Sorry, I didn't see the whole word.
I thought you were getting ready to rib, so go.
Abaddon. So abandon all hope, Matt. So Abaddon, she makes her debut. She's got a very horror style of character. She's got different colored contact lenses, one all white, the other one all black or red. She's crawling out like one of those possessed women that are from any of the typical horror movies. Comes out quick squash match here she has with the magician Anna Jay, which I thought was hilarious. Right, they give her this really awesome package about her showing up in AEW, and she's been a fan of wrestling since she was middle school, and she got out there and boom, she was done. But this was an amazing debut for the horror goth type chick, a character that she's portraying. I saw Rick Vicker. I just want to address this really quick. He mentioned in the Hamin Media discussion group that he felt that the commentators explained that she had a horror vibe, took away from it. I disagree. I thought them explaining it kind of added more realism to it. Like, oh, you're seeing what I'm seeing, right? Like, these chicks look like they popped out of a horror movie. So I liked it personally, Rick, and that's my thoughts on it there. Silvio, what'd you think of this debut?
Okay, so first of all, I know Abaddon. She trains with my good friend Matt Yaden. She's out of Denver, Colorado at Rocky Mountain Pro.
Sorry, sir.
Hard worker, and it's a very solid gimmick. She trained with me for about 3 days last year, approximately 1 year ago. And she had a really good look and a great entrance, but she was very green in the ring. A lot of the stuff she didn't look too good. The Abaddon that I saw last night on Dynamite, she's improved, I'd say, by at least 60%. The good things I can say about her is she showed up on TV for a huge debut with little experience. She knows how to fucking work TV because Rocky Mountain Pro does TV every week. That's what we need in wrestling, those people that understand TV. So with her limited experience, she came out and fucking smashed it. Now, the weird thing about this, I was a Anna Jay fan the first time we saw her. They give her this video package, putting her over, and the gimmick is ridiculous, though. Like, when I looked at it, I looked at Jen, I said, this is doomed to fail. You cannot have her in this hat and the world's biggest star, whatever the fuck, and she never won it. No, that ain't going to work. But I didn't know where they were going. I assumed Abaddon was coming in to do a job for her. Then I got the exact opposite, which I was very happy for Abaddon, but I didn't quite understand why we did the video package and gave her a silly gimmick for her to lose. Then when the Dark Order comes out at the end with Brody Lee, I'm saying, okay, well, maybe that gimmick was purposely meant to be like that so she can then turn dark, which is what I hope they do. But I was definitely confused that she got all this buzz. And if you look too on Twitter, all these guys, it looks like it was a mandate. You see all these people on the roster saying, oh, how about that Anna Jay? Or can't wait to see Anna Jay tonight. So it's mind-boggling how they did that finish. That I don't understand. Good for Abaddon, though.
Absolutely. Good for Abaddon. Very visual and had people talking. People were like, I bet that's Jordan Grace. I'm like, no, you idiot. It's not Jordan Grace. That's Rocky Mountain Pro Zone. And yeah, I think she was she wasn't doing the gimmick fully yet, but I think she was there when Stevie and I were there. And Yaden, exactly like you said, Matt, Yaden at Rocky Mountain Pro, training them for TV is what, even as a rookie, made her stand out as some of the people on the roster who still have never worked for TV and we're strictly indie workers. It pops me. I'm glad she's using the name because, as Sil can attest, we came through a DCW, and Byron Wilcott, who is also known as Big Daddy Yum Yum on the indies. He works a lot of Texas, Alabama, Indy in there, Mississippi, and Florida. When he came in to train at OVW, he came for about 6 weeks maybe, and hell of a nice guy. I remember Power and I were upstairs writing, and I just looked up. I was like, who is a evil biblical character like that? And and Abaddon was what we came across. I remember searching in, and we just called him Abaddon. And he came out, and he's probably about 6'5", and he had big dreads and shit. And we had Big Cat was on top. He looks just like Goldberg. So we were looking for somebody to feed to him. We could have a little mini feud, and we knew he was leaving, so Big Cat could go over. But he'd do the Alka-Seltzer in the mouth on himself. So when he'd get the mandible claw on people, he'd start foaming at the mouth and shit, and then the other guy would too. So it was dope. So I'm already a mark for the name Abaddon. So you already had me from the jump that way. And it's not like I've had plenty of things stolen. One is not the other. It's not like influence the other. It's just great minds think alike and see an opportunity of what it is. And thinking at a high layer, to even call yourself Abaddon, that's starting at a high point. You have to know what the fuck you're representing that way. But yeah, could have used the pre-tape time to really get her over and jump the gun with the Dark Order stuff in there. Just because she's a dark character, wait, let her build, let those worlds start to converge, man. You know what I mean? Like, so much bad shit, so much good stuff that you just blew right by. We just went right by it. So
I mean, to your point in regards to the Dark Order, guys, after the match, the Dark Order appeared, and apparently Anna Jay has now aligned herself with the Dark Order. In doing so, it looks like they brought out some sort of contract to Colt Cabana, who was also out at ringside. I'm kind of getting even more on board with this Brody Lee Dark Order gimmick now that he's got the full cast and crew there. I'm really digging it. I don't know. Me personally, it was entertaining seeing him come out.
That's all pre-tape, bro. Like, if you're gonna do an Illuminati or Freemasons type deal or whatever it is, Scientology, let's see from a voyeuristic standpoint them coming in to sign something secretive in a deal. Make it look like Project Veritas, where they just fucking exposed Antifa, and there's an insider inside of that where you get it from a teddy bear cam or something like that, and you don't, and Cole or her are acting one way like they're not, but behind the scenes we get to see that they're actually about to sign and what's going on that way, dude. To do that shit in the ring is so like that. This is why they're losing. That does not enter. That's so wrestling. It's so wrestling, dude.
I found it to be entertaining. I'm kind of liking it. I'm excited to see where they go with it. Personally,
It's 20% to me, bro.
Silvio,
like Matt is we're getting a lot more characters, stuff like that. They're trying to explore that, like you said. We got Abaddon, who's a strong character. That's what I want to see. I want to see more with our character stuff like the things I've been working on, that's what I've really been pushing to all my students. Let's try to do something different that's going to make you unique to everyone else, to where you're the only fucking person doing that. And I think the more we have of that in wrestling, the better. And actually this week, one of my characters that I developed is going to be making their TV debut here in the next week or two. So hopefully I can keep adding that fucking character star presence to pro wrestling.
Dude,
that's what we need.
That girl alone if there are any little kids watching, they got nightmares from that. And that's what I said right away.
Awesome.
Before the bell even rang. I go, you made an impact. You got over in your entrance. That's it right there, dude. What happens from here on out? That's why I just wish the segment was clean and not extra biz. You know what I mean? Not saying the biz they did was bad, but Manby said this. What did Manby tell you the other day on Impact? Why didn't the popcorn spot work with the girls on Impact and Havoc and Nevaeh?
Because there was too many things going on, right? There wasn't one concentrated thing to do for the business.
Got it. The focus is this girl's debut over strong, period, point blank, right? Not pre-tape with the hat girl that makes you think she's the one, then this girl, then, oh my God, the finish, the business is really her losing and going off with, dude, we've got 3-4 things happen and not one solid spotlight on any of them.
I mean, I could see what you're saying, and I understand. I think personally, like what I take away from this is her. So, like, I remember. So, like, at least to me, she got over in her, you know, she's the one being talked about.
But not over as fully as she could be.
I liked her makeup. It looked like her face was melting. It was pretty badass.
Hit her up online. I'm sure.
I don't want to do that. I'm just saying I'm a little freaked out myself. So we move on here as far as in after that whole Dark Order. I guess you might want to say seance recruitment, whatever you want to call it. We had a commercial break. We come back, and now we've got the debut for the first time ever on AEW Dynamite. Dynamite, not Dark. Billy Gunn is in a match, singles match, versus MJF. I gotta tell you, MJF in this match did something that like made me get out of my seat and just like say bravo. And that was at the end of the match when Wardlow tosses the ring in. He puts it on his pinky. He's laying on the ground, and then he slyly looks up at the camera and winks. I was like, oh, beautiful. I was like, so perfect timing. Like that was such great awareness, as far as him being a wrestler in the ring to look, kind of give that, break that fourth wall of the audience, like, oh yeah, it's about to go down. And in conclusion, MJF picks up the victory by using his ring and sucker punching Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn looked fantastic in this match, looked like a pro. I mean, MJF worked over his leg, and Billy Gunn was selling it the whole match. So even at one point, MJF attempted to famous her. Billy did counter it, but he couldn't get the pinfall attempt before Wardlow jumping up on the apron. So it was a great match. I liked it. What did you think of this, Silvio?
I liked it, man. I love Billy Gunn. I want to see them do more with him. When I was watching just the opening of this and them coming out, I remember thinking, shit, I could watch these two work with each other all day. MJF has gone back to his old school MJF roots of not doing shit, winning with heat, being a smarmy little heel. They did a sensible job of working Billy's leg. Up until that point, Billy was no-selling a lot of shit, and it was believable. He was making the size comparison work. They did a cool spot with MJF locking in like the Indian Deathlock figure 4 kind of move, using the ropes. Then Aubrey kicked his hand away, that old Flair spot. Thought we had a lot of good stuff. I love that scene you brought up, Maddie, when he looked at the camera and gave him a shot. I love the fact that a heel's winning with the punch in 2020. I think it's awesome. And finally, I know you haven't got into this yet, but I'm going to jump the shark. Finally, it looks like we're getting what I'd pitched a while ago, where we're finally going to see that interaction between Wardlow and Dinosaur. So now we might finally get that tag match with Jungle and Dinosaur against MJF and Wardlow. I think those two styles mesh really well, and it could make for some good TV.
Yeah, I think that'll be good too. And both those guys need each other, Wardlow and Luchasaurus. So I think at this point, like they need a good side feud, both of them, instead of just being the backup guys or what have you, and that'll be strong. Billy Gunn, dude, I said it before, the side effects of steroids are fame, money, and power. And he looked like a monster. I mean, I like Billy the most in that tough enough shit as a coach, because I like when he fucking promos people and he takes this shit seriously. And I like how fundamentally sound he is on everything. I was going to ask you this still, because there's one thing, I don't know if I like it or I don't like it. I kind of call it the Billy Gunn punch, because we as Rip guys, we usually punch in the neck or we come on the side a bit. He always punches on top of the head. Do you like that? I don't hate it, but I'm thinking if you're a boxer and the reality, I mean, it's safe. It's totally safe, and the guy should be bumping on it. But, you know, if they don't, you can tell it's a little phony. But if you also were to punch a guy in the forehead, chance of you breaking your hand is way high, too. So I just wondered what you were thinking about those type of punches.
That's the old school thing when people didn't analyze it as much. If you look at Hogan's punches to the top of the head, Savage had a punch to the top of the head, DiBiase. So I think it's kind of a generational thing.
Right.
Me, I personally prefer the neck, and I have a very precise shot to the chin and jaw that I know how to do well enough to look great and not kill somebody. That would be my preference, but it's an old school thing. That's how they used to throw 'em.
It's just one thing I noticed last night, and it's nothing I hate or not at all, but this is awesome, man. And I think if they really went at it here, MJF and could reinvent Billy Gunn in a whole new, not comedy, but snapping back and forth kind of way, youngster versus, you know, like it's not like he's an old timer like Funk coming out of retirement or something. This guy looks like he could be champ tomorrow of your whole Fed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's real money right there, just based on how quick-witted Billy is, how he knows how to elevate MJF more than MJF knows how to elevate himself possibly. And that right there, I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of money and a lot of business to be done. And especially to get heat on Billy's sons to make MJF and Wardlow even more of a heel. You know what I mean? So, but this is kind of where I fell off, and I had to come back on at the end with the Best Friends versus El Sexians in the main event. So, guys, I appreciate you towing the line. I'm going to actually have to jump out because I got so much work to do. I wish I could stay, and, you know, I'll be back on air. Who knows when. But next week, you guys, I should be back. We're coming back Wednesday, so I'll get the show in me and whatnot. I got to check on the NXT review. Anything else I can do for you fellas?
That's it.
Where are you going, Ben? Tell us. Come on.
Siesta. It's a little siesta.
God damn it.
So I'll get a hold of you if we do a beach day or something. But y'all, man, appreciate you. If you need me for anything, just holler.
All right, buddy.
All right, later, guys.
Later's, Ben. So, Mr. Silvio, as you alluded to, following the match itself, we had the interaction with MJF, and I guess it would be the Jurassic Express. They kind of got into it. They jaw-jacked a little bit, and then this broke out into a huge fight with basically everybody from the audience clearing the barricades, that being the higher talent, trying to break up this scuffle, this kerfuffle. Interesting that they would kind of just go to break. I liked it. I saw somebody on Twitter noted that he liked the fact that AEW does pull aparts and these big fight scenes really well, because it always just seems so very chaotic. It doesn't seem scripted, or you're going to come in here and you're going to punch this guy here and you're going to wait here for this move to happen. It's just people brawling, so there's kind of a realistic effect to it. What did you think? How did you think the brawl had an effect on this?
It's because they're not scripted, and that's the best way to book it. You just have it be organic, and the two people or the four people in this case that are actually involved in the fight just play off of one another. You feel the when you're in something like this, you feel the energy. And it's better in front of an active audience because you can hear if you're a good worker, you can hear when the audience wants something. So, you know, that might be your cue to come back in and jump the pile. But that's why it looks that way, because they're smart enough to know that that's not something you script. You just tell everyone, hey, when this happens, get in there and try to break them apart.
Good stuff. Interesting. Yeah, I liked it personally, and I thought it added some excitement. I like that they cut immediately away from it, so you're kind of, you know, left wanting more as well. Like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen between these two teams, because they haven't really announced anything at this point. But after that, then I believe we got the Sex Gods. They're being interviewed backstage, and they kind of did a little bit of recap as far as, you know, Orange Cassidy. He's interrupted them twice. He called Alex Marvez fathead, after he asked him. He's like, "Oh, you want another question? The answer is you're a fathead." He says that they beat Cassidy to a pulp, and tonight they're going to beat best friends, get a title shot because they're blood brothers, and blood is thicker than orange juice. What'd you think of this, Silvio?
Fathead Marvez, that's his new name. It's cool. Anytime I can see Jericho and Sammy on screen, I'm happy.
All right, so after that, Tony Schiavone, he is, I guess, about to interview Britt Baker. And it wasn't even so much more of an interview, actually. If I was Britt Baker, too, I think I might be a little upset in this situation. As Tony Schiavone comes over, and she kind of refuses to do an interview with him because he brings up the AEW women's rankings and the fact that Hikaru Shida is going to be defending her title against Penelope Ford now at the Fighter Fest two-night television event. However, this angers Britt. As during the broadcast, she's doing some very comical stuff. She's sending over Tony Schiavone little notes on like a wire, a clothes wire, and she kind of like just Tony Schiavone can pull the string up and bring the message to him. At one point, she sent him a message that said, "I don't like your green tie." I thought that was funny because Tony's like, "Oh, she doesn't like my green tie." That popped me. But so she was great here, but she gets upset. She's like, "Rebel, get me out of here! Take me out of here! Take me away!" Or Rebby is what she says. And Reba, I'm sorry, has what she calls her. And unfortunately, Big Swole is in the driver's seat, and she rides off with her. I'm very happy to report that they did pay this off. As I was watching this, I was like, they better pay this off later. They better show us what happens with Britt Baker. And they do. But for now, she just drives off with her. And I thought this was really cool. What did you think of this setup as far as with Britt Baker throughout the evening?
I love anything with Britt Baker. And when we get to the payoff later in the show, I got some fun stuff I'd like to share. It was fun for what it was. I love the dynamic of Britt and Tony. And it was cool they did something with Swole, coming back to what happened last week. Only thing that I could say that maybe I wasn't a fan of is the way that they shot Big Swole. It reminded me kind of that empty arena match that The Rock and Foley had. And AEW is the alternative to WWE, right? So we talked about how different it was going to be, and we expect a lot of different things. And I'm cool with them doing entertainment as well, because that's what sells. If I ran a big wrestling brand, I would do it as well. But I thought that shot and the way that they set that up was a little too reminiscent of what you would see on something like WWE, and lack some of the realism that AEW tries to present. But it was a chance to get Swole on TV and get Britt Baker 2 segments in one night.
Yeah, to point that out, I got that Rock and Austin vibe, with Rock taking Austin to the bridge. Kind of, I was kind of getting that build up as I was watching. Like, oh, this is a little nostalgic, kind of triggered that emotion. That's why I was like, man, they better do something. They better throw her off a bridge, or she better put her in a toilet somewhere, or the trash can, or she better, take her to the county dump, or something crazy. I was like, there's got to be something, and I'm glad that they do it. But before we get there, we get another title match, as we got Cody. He's in the ring. It's time for his open challenge. Says he doesn't have Kenny, a Hangman, or the Bucks at his side. He wonders if he's even in the Elite anymore, but that's neither here nor there. He introduces a very resounding introduction here for Arn Anderson after contemplating whether or not he's in any groups, as well as the Nightmare Collective too. He's like, I'm out here with my coach. Anderson does take the mic. He says, sometimes you have to listen to that little voice. He says that sometimes you have to listen to that little voice. I can't do an Arn Anderson. He says Cody can beat Jake Hager, but the timing isn't right. We'll see Hager down the road. We do see Hager on the monitor as well, monitoring everything. Anderson says now that isn't the time to talk about that. He scouted someone who can give Cody a test. And we get the debut. I mean, it may not even be long-term, just could have been a one-off. I hope so. I hope it's longer after this guy's debut. Ricky Starks, former NWA television champion, cuts a promo in which he says, he said to try his hand for the open challenge. He slept in cars, floors, had $3 to his name. He's made it from the ground up to where he is now. And tonight, he makes his name even brighter. And I would agree, because I think after watching this match, Silvio, I want to see like a best of 5 or a best of 7 series between Cody and Ricky Starks. This was a really good match. However, I want to point out two things that I think were unsafe for this match. One of them I don't think was to their fault. The other one I have a big complaint about. The first one was when they collided with the headbutt and Ricky Starks runs up to the back and Cody's, pulling back out from the corner and their heads kind of collided. I know that wasn't necessarily done on purpose. That just looked nasty. So you can't really fault them from that. But dude, his crossroads at the end of this match, I rewound that thing like 3 times. He comes right down on the top of Stark's head. But other than that, great match. I'll let you kind of give your insight on this itself.
So the first thing to address the crossroads, that's what I was talking about a few weeks ago, how now the newer wrestlers want to take the diamond cutter or the RKO as a spike onto their head, and that's going to cause injury. We're seeing the same thing with crossroads. Previously, most of the time, it would just be a front bump, a face bump, like you would take on a pancake or flapjack. But because of the direction of the new style, everybody thinks they got to take it on their head. And Cody's a safe worker, but eventually someone will get hurt. Now, for the segment itself, I was watching Arn's promo, which I liked. And I don't know if you guys remember a few weeks ago, I laid out an angle with Cody Rhodes where I said, what we need to do with Cody to get him super hot again is we need to work some kind of injury angle where he gets hurt, he's off TV. Maybe we do a Flair for the gold kind of thing where maybe it's his neck injured. We check in on his progress and we make a big deal. And then he finally returns, whoops some ass on whoever hurt him, and we set up to this big money match. Cody has the fans all on his side. So as I'm watching this, I'm not sure. I love Cody Rhodes as a babyface. I'm not sure that I want to see him on TV because I feel like Cody is a special wrestler. So by having him out defending the belt every single week, I think is going to take a little bit of that specialness away and not make him as unique. So as I heard Arn's promo, it kind of reminded me of Rocky 3 when Mick was telling Rocky, you don't need to fight this guy. I got other guys for you. And then Rocky kind of asked Mick, like, what were you giving me, setups? Because I think Mick said something like, it was easy. They were handpicked. And Rocky said, what do you mean, setups? No, they were good fighters, but they're not a killer. This guy is a killer. Well, Hager is a killer. So I think they might be going that route with it, and perhaps we'll see my injury angle get laid out where it's Rocky versus Clubber Lang. Cody's all smiles, trying to, be the good guy holding this championship, and he ain't ready, and Hager fucking kills him. And now we see Cody have to build back up, which is the story I want. Hopefully we'll get it. On to Ricky Starks. I'd seen him on NWA, and I got to be honest, and I was telling Jenna this when we were watching, I was never that impressed with Ricky Starks. I didn't see necessarily all the hype. He just looked like a averagely skilled pro wrestler. I didn't understand what was so special about him. But that motherfucker took this opportunity and ran with it. He showed me, he proved himself to me, and I think to the rest of the world what he could do. Ricky Starks had a near flawless performance. Every single thing he did in that match, he had snap, precision. He looked like a skilled pro wrestler. He was violent, aggressive. He took it to Cody. He did so well on his part with aggression that he made Cody look fantastic. Cody's a damn good wrestler, but Cody is more of an emotional wrestler, similar to a Dusty. He's a storyteller. He doesn't rely as much on high spots and moves. He does them, but that's not what his matches consist of. But Starks did so well that he made Cody look like Cody was that kind of guy that can do anything in the ring. And Cody's great, but Starks made him look even that much greater. If he didn't have a spot before, which I don't think he did, I'm sure he opened a lot of eyes, and I want to see more of him. I can't put over enough what a hell of a job he did, and it was a fucking good match. That was the best match of the night, seconded by the opening tag match. So awesome stuff. I loved it, and congrats, Ricky Starks. If you're listening, you did a hell of a job, man. Nothing but respect.
Yeah, dude, he was fantastic from his promo to his match. I hope that if he is going to be signed in some capacity or brought back again, that it's, in a long-term fashion. This may have just been, a one-off for this television tournament. To your point, do you think it would be more interesting at this point to keep the title on Cody and continue to have outsiders come in until eventually one of those big-time free agents maybe comes in and beats him? I mean, because I was thinking about the different opportunities other than like Ricky Starks. You could bring in Nick Aldis. You could bring in Marty Scurll. You could bring in Flip Gordon. You could bring in all these, or even more. I'm just giving you his friends and guys he knows, right? So I'm just bringing up different guys and names. But you can bring in outsiders and really make it a true open, championship and really give opportunities for these indie guys to shine, whereas WWE doesn't really do that, right? You come into their system, you're in NXT, and now you're here. If AEW continues to be a viable place that they're showing, look, we came from the indies, so we want to continue to promote the indies. I do think that could be a better option rather than just taking the title off him quickly right now.
It's a good idea, but not for Cody. Do it with somebody else. That's something I would do, like a Trent Beretta. Let me ask you, Matt, if you had to name, let's say, top 3 stars in AEW, who would you think would be on that list?
It would probably be Chris Jericho, number 1. I'd have to say Mox because he's the champ, number 2 right now, and his WWE past. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the easiest 2. After that, considering everything star-wise, I'm going to go with money. So I'd say the Young Bucks as a brand, as a whole.
See, I would put Cody in the top 3.
Interesting.
And I think in the fans'
he'd be by 4, probably.
In the fans' eyes, in a lot of ways, Cody is AEW. So if you think of him, he's a top-tier main eventer. There's not really a more top-tier babyface than Cody other than Moxley, who's the champion, if we're talking about top babyfaces. So let's talk about champions. When Hogan, I know it was different, but when Hogan was on top, we didn't see Hogan defending the title on TV. We'd see it maybe in Saturday night's main event. Steve Austin, he was not defending the title on TV every week. The Rock was not defending the title on TV every week. Triple H was not defended on TV every week. Hulk Hogan, all the way on down. So the problem is Cody is a special performer. So even if we make it interesting like that and we bring in all these guys, after a while they're watching to see who comes next. They're not watching because of Cody. So because Cody is so much of a star and you can build these huge dramatic angles with him, I would want to protect him as the booker. And if Cody, you're listening to this isn't a knock against you, but rather a compliment to how special a performer you are. So I would either say make it to where we get out of this somehow, where you don't have to defend it every week, or we do something, to build you somewhere else, because I just don't want to see any of the specialness and mystique of Cody go away because they're overexposed. And we see that happen in WWE all the time when we see a guy so much that they just become a guy. Cody is too special to become just another guy. Same with Moxley. Moxley's special. We do not see – what did we get the last couple of weeks from Moxley? Promos. And he's still over. We don't see John defending his belt every week. Otherwise, he ain't going to be that special. So it's a tough spot to be in, man.
No, that's a good point. If you review, as you mentioned, Hogan, Austin, The Rock, anytime there was a championship match, there was a build-up. It wasn't just given away on television. Now, if it was either impromptu or it was something that was built up, like when they built Hogan versus Goldberg on Nitro, that was going to happen, right?
And that had 48,000 tickets.
Right. And so they made bank. They got their money and merch and in-house seats. But I think to your point, the excitement also, there's a lack of excitement if the title is on the line every week, right? Because there's nothing to anticipate. And there's nothing impromptu about it. Like one of my oldest memories I bring up is like June 6th, 1999, the night after Over the Edge, when Austin loses his CEO job, but he tells everyone, Stone Cold Steve Austin signed a couple zeros to the end of his contract and set up a World Heavyweight Championship match with The Undertaker. Right? So then he fought The Undertaker, and then he beats The Undertaker. So 11-year-old Matt remembers that night when Stone Cold beat The Undertaker for the title on Raw. And, so those are the type of moments you want. They need to create versus just having a championship match every week. Unless they're going to have, like I said, unless they're going to do this indie thing, which I think it would be interesting if you bring in big name indie stars like this, because then it would add some variety and you never know who is going to show up.
It would be cool, Matt, but I'd rather see that on pay-per-view. I'd rather see a 6-week build to all this or a 6-week build to Marty Scurll so we can maximize it and sell some tickets. I will say this, though, the style of that match last night, if we're going to see Cody every week, that's the Cody I want to see. He got a little bit more that direction with Mark Quinn last week. The first one with Jungle Boy, I think they relied a little too much on some spotty stuff. But this was great. This was a fucking pro wrestling match.
It was good.
They didn't do anything nuts. I don't even think they fought on the floor. And if they did, it was brief. It was just a damn good pro wrestling match. So if he's going to do it every week, that's what I want to see.
I enjoyed it. So up next, we had the Super Bad Death Squad. Now, if it's my fault that I didn't recognize that this is what they were going by, I apologize. I didn't realize that this was the name of their new tag team, the Super Bad Death Squad. I like it, of course. It's a play on the Suicide Squad, right? So I like the logic there. With Penelope Ford versus the Young Bucks. So we get to see Matt and Nick in action here. This was, your typical Young Bucks match, I think, with Kip Sabian and Havoc. It wasn't a bad match. Ultimately, in the end, as I thought it would be interesting, I thought the Bucks were going to win, and they did. They hit the Meltzer driver, and then they hit the Northern Lights suplex, tagged Nick in for a stereo super kick party, made Sabian hold Havoc in the tombstone, and then super kicked both men for the win. I thought that finish was really unique. I hadn't really seen that, where to explain the Young Bucks set up a groggy Sabian with Jimmy Havoc in a tombstone position. So he's holding Jimmy Havoc for the tombstone, and then they super kicked his legs out from under him. So he hit the tombstone on Jimmy Havoc. It was very unique. Young Bucks pick up the victory. Of course, I think the story was more or less along the lines of what was going on during the match and what ensued after. It's funny, Ben dipped out on two different things I think that would have gotten him hot, and that's some spots in the Cody match and in this match, particularly here, where you've got the Blade and Butcher, who are dressed up in all white. At one point, Jim Ross said they look like guys who work in the bakery. So Bakery Bros is what I started thinking. It would be a good tag team name. I was also thinking I'm not trying to incite any racial, information, but if they dress up in all blue, they could look like Smurfs, right? I mean, it looks like Smurfs outfits. I'm just joking, guys. But that was more the business afterwards, as the Blade and the Butcher, they're out ringside with FTR. Thought that was interesting. If they're going to be attacking each other, why wait till after the match? Why didn't they just start beating the shit out of each other while they're out at ringside together? They're not in the match, so why didn't they just fight? But they eventually do get into a brawl. Ball breaks out with all four teams afterwards. Eventually, with that brawl ending with both the Young Bucks and the FTR doing their signature Meltzer driver, tombstone driver, where in the Young Bucks case, they do a tombstone variation, and in the FTR's case, they do a pile driver. But it's essentially the same move, where they jump off the top rope and smash their legs down. So that's how that whole segment played out. Silvio, I know there's a lot there to go over, but what did you think of this?
Do you know why, Matt? Do you know why the Butcher and the Blade were out for that segment? Do you know what their purpose was?
I guess to get FTR over.
In particular, how would they do that? What's the particular way that they would get FTR over?
By selling for them and showing that FTR is a more dominant tag team than they are.
Taking their move, getting beat up.
Right, getting beat up.
So the entire reason for the Butcher and Blade being out there throughout this match, I think maybe a total of 7 minutes, was for them to get their asses kicked, which is, again, just what we're seeing. I'm watching this, and the only thing I can think of is, who the fuck do they have heat with? So it'd be different if it were a comedy thing. If we were kind of making fun of the fact that they keep getting beat up and they were playing to it and their promos were like, God, we're really going to get them this time. And there was a little humor to it, I think it would work. But we're still trying to portray them as a threat of a tag team, but they get beat up or beat every week. Mind-boggling. I had a few logical issues in this match because there were some holes. Before that, though, they did some cool shit. I like that spot with the tombstone. Nick Jackson made a hell of a fucking comeback where he's flipping, flying, he's flawless, his motions are great. Later, we got another good one from Matt. They did a lot of good stuff. Jimmy Havoc looks like he's been beefing up a little bit. I like that. He looks like he's putting on a little more size. That was one of the knocks against him, as he was too tall and skinny. But some of my logicals, one I've been talking about for a while, is Sabian and Havoc. I still don't know what they have a name now, which is good, and they're getting more comfortable with each other. But I still don't know why they're aligned, and I still don't know why Sabian is super bad. If thing with that is like I'll work with a lot of wrestlers, and you see a lot of indie wrestlers that'll have a name like the main event or like the main attraction. But what about them means that? Like, what about you is the main attraction? We can't necessarily say that, and you're not showing us that in your work. So it's just a name for the sake of being a name. Sabian doesn't really have a gimmick. It's just super bad. I don't know how he defines that, and I don't think the audience does either. Biggest hole in the logic was you hear Tony Schiavone put over that Havoc tried to introduce some pliers and referee Rick took him away. But then when you look at the camera, the referee had taken the pliers and evidently sat them in the heel's corner instead of giving them to somebody at the desk or putting them in his pocket. So we'd see later in picture, I think, was Havoc over there and like doing something to Matt's fingernails. That was weird. Then we saw usage of the shitty wet floor sign.
Right.
First shot was okay because I think it was Jimmy Havoc that delivered it, and he delivered a good shot. But later, after Nick Jackson's come back, we see Penelope Ford come in and give a shitty fucking one, which isn't necessarily her fault because she shouldn't have been swinging it to begin with. And then we have Nick Jackson, a top tag team guy, selling it like a fucking shotgun, overselling it. There's nothing worse than a bad gimmick shot and an oversell. So it just had a few of those logic holes. It was kind of busy at the end with everybody coming in and out. And we had the Revival walk out with the coffee. It was just, I think it was a little overbooked. There was too many movement parts. It was a cool visual at the end of the double, the stereo spike pile drivers and telling that story of those two. That was great. That was my favorite part. But it's like we had the Butcher and Blade come in just for that. There was all this moving. They did one spot where Nick gets hit off the apron and falls in between the two teams on the floor, and it looks like something's going to happen, but nothing ever comes of it, and they still end up winning anyway. I just think they tried to condense a whole lot into one match, and some of it was illogical. That said, the Bucks are really good. They do some cool shit, and Sabian and Havoc did a pretty good job as well. But I don't know, man. It's just kind of a weird match.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was just a little bit confusing to me because I remember in a previous AEW now, whether it was last week or the week before, they had that sit-down interview with FTR, and the Blade and the Butcher challenged them, right? Have they had that match yet? Because I don't think they've had that match yet. So if they haven't,
had it.
Oh, they had it.
Week. It was
You're
really
right.
good, but the Butcher and Blade lost.
Okay, so if the Butcher and the Blade lost, then why, again, why are they hanging around ringside at FTR cordially?
To get beat up. They're booking this in on the sheet. It's like, okay, what do we need?
No, I know, but logically it doesn't make sense. If I'm outside hanging out and I see the guy, I just got my ass kicked 5 feet away, I'm not going to wait for the end of the fucking match. I'm going to go at him now. That's my gripe, is there's just no logic them having them be out there for that long together.
Well, and to build on that, after the match, they jumped the Young Bucks. They didn't jump FTR. They jumped the Young Bucks.
It didn't make
FTR
sense.
saved the Young Bucks, who they're evidently have a rivalry with.
It's very confusing. Yeah, very confusing indeed. Well, Moxley cuts a promo afterwards. I'm sorry. I don't want to skip this. First, it was Taz. He's outside with Brian Cage, and Taz accuses Moxley of stealing his gimmick. Cage says Moxley brought this on himself, and he wishes Fyter Fest was right now. He says, who better? Nobody better. Of course, that's a reference to his idol. If you didn't know about Brian Cage, he's a big Canyon fan and trained with Canyon when he first started. So I thought that was really cool. And I thought this was a good use of Brian Cage. I've never been the biggest fan of Brian Cage's promos. Not saying he can't cut a good promo, because he did here tonight. I thought this was nice. It was short and sweet, to the point. Taz did most of the talking. Passed the mic to Brian for a couple keywords. That's all you have to say. I thought this was an excellent promo from Taz and Brian Cage. What do you think?
That's how it should be. Let Taz do the heavy lifting and let Brian say a few things that have impact. It was just funny, though, when I'm watching, I thought I hadn't heard Cage really talk much. Cage reminded me of Scott Steiner. He sounded like Scott Steiner. That was a little bit funny.
So after that, we get a commercial break. Then Moxley cuts his rebuttal in a promo which says he is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. He's in this wrestling business because he's got demons, and the only thing that keeps him away is hurting people. I'm sorry, that's the only thing that keeps him from hurting people, is being a professional wrestler. And now Cage's path has crossed with him. He challenges Cage to beat him if he can and survive if he's as miserable as he is. So Mox alluding to the fact that the only way you're going to take this title off my hands is if you lay me out, or you're just as miserable and crazy as I am. After Taz points out that Mox stole his gimmick, and then you watched a Mox promo. Did you see any correlation of that? Did you think that was a bit of a stretch, or was that a good analysis by Taz?
I thought it was pretty good analysis. Not really much of a stretch. This Moxley promo, this had the strongest line I've heard in professional wrestling all year. When Moxley said, and he delivered it expertly, when he said, I'm in this business for one reason. I got demons, bad ones. And he delivered it so real, so believably heartfelt. Like, it was the quality of a star in a dramatic series that you binge watch on Netflix. So fucking good. The emotion there. Moxley is on such fire with his promos and believability. Just that one line alone was enough to sell me on an entire promo. Like, I don't know if some people like will grasp the magnitude of how good that actually was, but it tells his character in one sentence. Hamin and I always talk about show, don't tell. That one sentence tells you exactly who fucking Jon Moxley is in a 10-second soundbite. Just amazing.
Yeah, no, it was really well done on his part. It made you, start to think about other things in Moxley's life. You're like, oh, I wonder what it's like when Mox is at home with Renee. I hope she's okay. Like, he's got all these demons, and the only thing that keeps him away is wrestling. You're like, wow. So there was a lot of believability there. Like, he broke down that sense of, I guess, story mode, and it felt real. I felt like I wasn't listening to a pro wrestler. I just felt like I was listening to John Mox being like, yo, if I don't fucking wrestle, this shit's going to get wild, So I agree. I thought it was very heartfelt, and it was very emotional. Speaking of emotions, we got Britt Baker coming up here in this payoff. However, first we do see that Sammy Guevara, Matt Hardy are going to be taking on each other, I guess, next week. We also got Brody Lee and Colt Cabana versus Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. The Natural Nightmares versus FTR. And Luchasaurus versus Wardlow in a lumberjack match. And apparently Moxley and Taz will have a sit-down on either on commentary or via interview. They didn't really go too much into depth into that. They just said they'll be together. Then we got Britt Baker's being found in a dumpster. I thought this was great. It was Reba, you said, correct? Baker berates her, saying she's been here for 5 hours, and she's like, you know what? I should just fire you. You're done. Get out of here. And Reba's like, wait a minute. You mean I'm free? I don't have to be here anymore? And just as she's about to walk off screen, then Baker pulls her back, and you see Baker, upset, promising that she makes a vow that she's going to get Big Swole for dumping her off in this trash can. I thought this was great, as Ben always puts it over, right? Show don't tell. They didn't have to show us her being thrown into the trash can. All they had to show was just that little bit of her being in the trash can, and the big banana peel over the side of her face, and she's got dirt all over her eyes. It was great. I liked it. What do you think of this?
Brett looking like Oscar the Grouch in that trash can. And the comedy of that, like when she said 5 hours, Rebel corrects her and says, well, it's been 1 hour. Never mind that. Oh, you're correcting me now? And then she fires her. And then when she says I'm free now, she said, no, you're rehired. She comes back. So just the dynamic, the comedy dynamic of those two, of Britt like telling her, get me out of the can. And you see Rebel scrambling around to try to figure out how to do it. At one point, she throws her phone in the air.
Yes, that part was great. Because she's like looking down at her phone. She's like, hey, what are you doing? Oh.
So good. Britt does this so well. She even talked about Tony. She's like, where's Tony? And Rebel's like, you put him on a friendship break, remember? She's like, oh, that's right, I did, but that doesn't matter. He should still be here. Call him right now. So just all these comedic elements, but Britt delivers it so well and so funny. When I was watching this last night, it's a little bit of a bold statement, especially considering our reviews on Britt at the start of AEW. But right now, Britt Baker, I'll go on record today, June 18th, 2020. Britt Baker is the most entertaining act in women's wrestling. And she might be pushing her way up into the most entertaining act in wrestling. There are a few things in wrestling after all the wrestling I've seen that I truly look forward to. If I know Jericho's got an in-ring segment of some kind, I look forward to it because I know it's going to be good. That's how I'm starting to get with Britt Baker. When I see Britt come on the screen, I know it's going to be something entertaining and something that I like. And there are very few performers in pro wrestling today that can give me that feeling. Like it's like almost being a kid again in some ways when you see the NWO or DX coming out for their promo. not to put Britt in the same category, but in the sense that you know you're going to get something cool or funny or edgy when they come out. And fucking Britt delivered, man. Britt Baker's gold. I almost don't even want her to. I don't even want to see her wrestle anymore. I just want to see all this shit.
Yeah, she's very entertaining, and I would have to agree that she's, in my opinion, the best women's professional entertainer. And however you want to classify her right now, she's not actually in the ring on television, better than anything I've seen. Other than maybe I'd say I really do enjoy what Rosemary's doing on Impact Wrestling, but other than maybe a Rosemary, there's not really much out there right now that I see that's got a lot of character development, that takes the time with their backstage vignettes and their character to really invest into what they're trying to, put out as far as on, visualization television format, if you will. So agreed. It remains to be seen what they're going to continue to do with Britt Baker. I like all this stuff, as long as they continue to give her an outlet. I think it's only going to propel her even further, as you pointed out, even into one of the best acts in wrestling, period.
You know how Becky Lynch got over in the ring as the man? They kept feeding her wins. They were building her up by winning all these matches and showing the audience how good of a competitor she is. And then Becky was doing these promos where she was essentially carrying herself like a badass, talking like a badass. Britt, in my opinion, now is morphing into the entertainment version of that. And what I like about Britt is that she shows ass. She's not a badass. The fucking eggs on her face, the banana peel is on her face, and she makes it work.
Good points. Well, before we get into the main event, we just want to, of course, recognize our sponsors, thebrosters.com. Go ahead and pick up yourself a bag of Russo Bro coffee, as well as don't forget to visit ZordosOliveOil.com for the finest artisan Greek olive oil, and StevieRichardsFitness.com. Get yourself a pair of resistance bands and join the online sensation that's sweeping the nations. That's the resistance band creation that is from Stevie Richards Nation. So go to StevieRichardsFitness.com.
Hey, to put over Zordos real quick, Matt,
yeah.
I ran out of olive oil, and I made the mistake of buying like a generic Publix brand one that was like so watery and didn't make my food taste good. This is actually a technique that I learned. I used to be a chef as a trade before I got really heavy into pro wrestling. And anything that a chef will cook, olive oil is the base in the pan. I don't care what it is, unless it's a dessert. And sometimes even then, the first thing you put in the pan is olive oil. And you always want like a really strong, good quality type of olive oil. So if you like to cook at home and you're not quite used to that, or that's something that you don't do, trust me on this. I make food every day. I have the best restaurant in the world in my own home. Try that Zordos olive oil. Put olive oil as the base to anything you cook, and your food is going to taste that much better. So shout out to them. They're always doing good work.
100% true fact, guys. I'm telling you, you just do a comparison. Make one piece of chicken in vegetable oil, make one piece of chicken in olive oil, and you can totally just taste the difference as far as in quality of your food.
You don't use that damn spray pan shit.
No,
use fucking olive oil.
The only time you should be using spray pan is like, I don't know, maybe heating up frozen food. Like if you don't use a microwave. Bacon? Okay, it's a good time.
No, baking.
Oh, baking. That's true. Yeah, right. Well, and of course, don't forget to check out ProWrestlingTees.com/BenHamin/BWO Stevie, SEG shirts, and Greek God Papa Don. Also, shout out to Big Sal, the brand new episode of the Horrid Junkyard podcast just dropped today, guys. Go check that out. The Sex Gods versus Best Friends, though, for our main event. The match begins. Best Friends attack the Sex Gods, knocking them from the ring. Chuck chokes Jericho with the T-shirt while Trent beats on Guevara. Trent hits Guevara with the spear onto the floor and then sends Chuck into the ring. These guys go back and forth. Eventually, Jericho tagged in. He dropped a knee on Chuck, and then Jericho dropped Taylor and attempted a lion salt before he ate some knees himself. Trent and Guevara got their tags in. Trent unloaded on Sammy. Trent elbowed Jericho off of the apron, then chopped Sammy in the corner. Sammy fired back, pumped up, hit a kick, and then Trent hit a huge back suplex. They went to commercial break. They come back, so this did go into 2 segments. Eventually, though, the match concludes where Guevara, he kind of tags in, goes up to top, and then Trent crotches him. Chuck gets Trent under his shoulders, hits an assisted suplex. Jericho again then breaks the pinfall attempt. We see Guevara rolling up Trent following a cheap shot from Jericho, but only gets a 2 count. Then Chuck attacks Jericho, sending him to the barricade on the outside The referee doesn't see Jericho, though, as he picks up a bat to hit Chuck. Meanwhile, Sammy hits a shooting star press for a near fall. And then the cameraman on the outside trips Sammy, allowing Trent to slam Sammy and score the pinfall. And so the winner of this match actually was the Best Friends. Now, the basis of this match was whoever won got to then actually fight Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, as the Best Friends were putting their number one contender title opportunity on the line. Interesting that they made this the main event. I get it. It's Chris Jericho. So Chris Jericho is a main event player. So I'm not going to argue that. I maybe would have put the tag team championship as the main event, but I'm not going to harp. That's just me. I don't know, fine combing or picking it apart. Again, it's Jericho. So can't argue with Jericho being in the main event. And it does kind of set up what happens afterwards, right? With Orange Cassidy, as we find out that supposed cameraman is Orange Cassidy. He attacks Chris Jericho. And then as we go off the air, we find out that Jericho and Cassidy will face each other at Fyter Fest. What did you think of how they ended AEW, this match, and the results afterwards?
So I think the reason why he main evented there was a ratings thing, of people sticking around.
That's smart.
You could see Jericho in the main. And the reason for Cassidy's placement in is it was the first time he's been introduced into a main event scenario. So that's, in a way, how you begin to build a main event guy. You tease them. You put a toe in the water. So we didn't see Orange Cassidy wrestling in the main event, but he was part of the segment in which he got over on a main event guy. So we're seeing Jericho trying to elevate Orange a little more before he wrestles them, because Jericho knows that for the match to mean anything, his opponent has to have credibility. So this was one way to start giving Cassidy a little credibility. On the match itself, I love Jericho and Sammy anytime. They're great. They're the sex gods. Sammy is getting so much better at learning how to be a little stronger in his matches. Previously, we would just see kind of Sammy just getting beat pillar to post, taking all these good bumps, getting heat, which was great. But now we're seeing him also learn how to get his offense in believably, so where he looks like a bit more of a threat, which is the evolution of Sammy. And him and Jericho's dynamic's great. Jericho's the fucking GOAT. I respect him. I love him. I can't get enough of Chris Jericho. As a wrestler and performer, he inspires me tremendously. I do want to see, however, I want to see Jericho maybe drop about 10 to 15 pounds to improve his mobility a little bit. He can still go for his age, and his drop kicks on point, his lion salt's still there. But I could see a little bit of a difference in his movement, and I think he'd feel a bit better and move a bit better just to shave a little bit of that weight off. The Best Friends, I like that they were aggressive, and I think Chuck is a money Trent is a money performer. I laid out an angle a couple weeks ago that what they could do with him as TNT champ. I just feel like the Best Friends need something. They're missing that thing. So they have their hug, right? But that's really the only thing that shows that they're best friends, and they'll do the arm thing in the entrance. It's kind of like, imagine DX if they just did the suck it motion, but they didn't have the attitude behind DX. They didn't do the comedy promos. They didn't do the spoofs. They didn't ride into Nitro on a Jeep that's supposed to look like a tank. There's nothing much to it, beyond the surface. And I think Chuck Taylor's in desperate need of a personality overhaul. He's a good worker. He doesn't have the strongest physique. And I don't know what Chuck's gimmick is. I don't know and I don't know anything about Chuck Taylor. And I don't think they've ever told us one thing on the show about Chuck Taylor, other than the fact that he's friends with Trent. So if they're going to continue going with them, we got to get some more identity to them, especially now if they're getting a tag title shot. But the match was pretty solid. The Orange Cassidy stuff was kind of cool how they did it with the trip and then the camera at the end. Funny note was when Sammy got crotch and he said, "No, not my Spanish God." That was one of the best notes. Only thing that I have issues with is, again, I think I like Orange Cassidy. I think he's can need money, and we debate on the show all the time of how to use him. I think right now we're still seeing a very schizophrenic Orange Cassidy. So he comes in, he puts the camera down, takes the clothes off, shows that it's him, and then he violently spears Chris Jericho and beats the shit out of him. And then he gives him a sick Superman punch. So all of a sudden Orange Cassidy looks like a badass. I don't think that's Orange Cassidy. I don't think that's who he built on the indies and who they're trying to present. What Orange Cassidy is thumbs, sluggishness, a kick to the shin, that laid back thing. He isn't a badass. Yes, he should be able to fight when the time's right, but it just was a little weird to me that he's a straight badass. Then the camera cuts after they show a card for next week, and he's in his jacket and he's back to doing the thumbs up. So I think it's still a very schizophrenic use of Orange Cassidy. We don't know when he's going to try. We don't know why. When he had the opportunity to try in the ladder match to get a shot at the champion, he didn't try. But then after he gets hit with the bag of oranges, he does try. It's a bit too confusing, and I'm worried if they don't define that soon, Cassidy will lose some of his luster. So that was my only issue I had with the segment. Best friends were aggressive. Trent is the fucking man. Good match for all intents and purposes. Sex gods are the sex gods. They're awesome. But that business with Cassidy is a little strange.
I mean, to your point about the best friends, even on Being the Elite, which I didn't watch this week's episode, but over the last couple of weeks, they've been doing a segment where the best friends are trying to find an idea to have a segment. Like, that's their shtick right now. They're trying to define character. They're trying to find something to develop. You know, you pointed out that they don't have much of a attitude. You know, it kind of feels like a watered down version almost of, let's say, a DX. Do you think if they did more best friends, like if they did a lot of more video packages of them doing something the best friends would do, maybe they're all in matching outfits and they're going to amusement parks and then somebody spills popcorn on Orange Cassidy and you punch him, but it's not like one of those, aggressive punches. They, dub in some like campy, sound effects, wham, pam, something stupid like that. There's a way to be, cartoony and comical. Do you think if maybe they did something like that, you're still keeping them in that baby face light, but also at least kind of giving them more character, something you can identify with? Because right now, you're right. Who is the best friends? What are they? There really is no character to relate to or latch on to. Everyone's got a best friend. Okay. I mean, that's what I mean. It's a thumbs up. Cool. And that's really all it is.
We know they're friends, but we don't know anything about Chuck or Trent outside of the fact that they're friends. We know more about Orange Cassidy in a very short time than both of the other two combined. So what you're saying about those segments could work, but it would be along the comedy line, so they have to make a choice. You can't be a comedy wrestler and a serious wrestler at the same time. You can be a credible wrestler who can be humorous when the time comes, just like Austin could be, The Rock, Foley could be, but Foley was also a killer at certain times or would take these crazy bumps. So I wouldn't say that would be the route to go if they want them to be a serious team. If they just want them to be a comedy act, yeah, do all that shit with them in matching shirts, riding roller coasters together. But we need to find a little bit more deeper identity. I do open my services if I can help you guys to do a little brainstorming and maybe come up with something that you can really latch onto and get the audience to understand who you guys are inside and out. I'd be happy to help because I think you guys have a ton of fucking potential to do great business there. You're both excellent workers. Let's just show the world who you are.
And Mr. Silvio, since we're wrapping up the show, where can people contact you if they want to get more information on the services of Silvio's Superstar Seminars or Silvio's Superstar Training, or you just trading with you down in Florida?
Facebook.com/Superstar Seminars or just Chris Silvio Superstar Seminars on Facebook. I am at the Chris Silvio on all the social medias. In the next couple of days, I'm going to announce the next round of my character development courses. I have 10 guys finishing up this week, so I'll open up 10 more spots if you guys want to get in. Right now, I have a variety of people from around the independents in different countries, and now I have some people that are working on national television. One of them and arguably the biggest promotion in the universe. It's not just I don't just work with young wrestlers who are trying to figure out their first gimmick or whatever it is. I'm working with people that are internationally touring or on national TV in addition to young guys. So if I can help you, I'm happy to do that. And I also, on my Patreon, I did a hell of an interview. Part 1 is coming out this week and part 2 will be coming out next week. of a wrestler named Phil Early, a friend of mine who just has this insane story. I don't want to give too much away, but he had a rough home growing up, and he spent a good 10 years of his childhood in various institutions around the country. And he kind of tells us about what happens at some of these boys' home and these youth rehabilitation centers, and just some of the horrible things he witnessed there, and gives us some insight onto how shitty our legal system can be. But he came through tremendous adversity, played in some rock bands for a while, got into pro wrestling, has excelled in that. He wrestles on 2 broken ankles. He has a condition where both ankles are constantly broken, and he's still training, he's still working. Just really emotional and good piece from one of the most interesting people I've met in pro wrestling. Last week I put out 4 shows on Patreon, so I'm always giving some badass content. If you want to check that out, it's called Superstar Wrestling Network, patreon.com/Superstar Wrestling Network. It's been going really well, and my patrons are digging the hell out of the product. So please, guys, come check it out. I'd really appreciate the support, and I guarantee you'll like what you hear.
Of course, you can interact with Mr. Silvio too on Twitter at the Chris Silvio if you want to submit your questions, feedbacks, or any of the Light the Fuse shows. You can also follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Matthew_Schaffer. Check out my brand new episode of Suck My Balls, a South Park review. This is episode number 28, Chef Aid. As I should have gotten somebody from the NFO, now that I'm thinking about it, to do that show. We could have talked about the Chewbacca defense. This is Chewbacca. He's from the planet Andor. Does that make sense? Anyway, so check out that episode. It's a fun one. We had a fun one. And, of course, you can check out all the litany of other shows here, the Monday, the Wednesday, the Friday Locker Room. As I mentioned, the Horrid Junkyard is now up. You can also check out the Conspiracy Horseman, which will be up here in the next 24 hours. The Wednesday Locker Room, as I mentioned. Smack Attack upcoming this week. Voices Misery on the weekend. Infinite Fringe, Crow 777. I'm sure there's a litany of other shows that we're going to be continuing to drop here. Of course, go ahead and go to prowrestlingtees.com/Ben Hamin. Follow him on Twitter at Ben Hamin, on Instagram at Hacker Hamin. And you guys, we got a lot of shit going on in the world. I just want to get you guys in the mood. I'm saying, don't worry, just be happy. You guys, you rise up this morning, smile at the rising sun. 3 little birds sit on my doorstep. I'm just saying, guys, go out there and just, try to have a good, positive day.
Don't scroll through Facebook.
Don't scroll through. Yeah, turn your shit off, man. Like, go for a walk. If you're in a nice area, even if it's raining, go out with an umbrella. Just go out for a walk and just get outside and be part of, life. Put the technology away and don't buy into everything you're reading. That's going to make it go crazy. So that's my words of the day from this college graduate, since I'm apparently thrown in people's faces. Ladies and gentlemen, that's another edition of Light the Fuse. Now we've lit the fuse. Ben Hamin's off on a super secret mission. We have to go now too. You all are infidels.